If you ever watched the entirety of Rick and Morty, or at least half of the show, actually, if you even watched one season, you would know about Morty Smith's romantic feelings towards Jessica, a red-haired teenage girl who happens to be in Morty's math class. And since the first season of the show, we get a pretty good handle on how much he likes her, often finding him doing some pretty outrageous and wild things to get close to her. Yet, none of these tactics ever really work, and at times it even feels like every time he gets shut down or something interrupts their moment, they reset their relationship, which obviously isn't a good thing for Morty. However, it does make for some interesting and entertaining moments, and today we're going over every moment and every time Morty Smith has fumbled Jessica. Before we begin, I want to let you know that I won't be using any episodes from the newest season of the show, so yeah, enjoy. We'll start off in Season 1, Episode 1, the pilot. In this episode, we are introduced to the main two characters, Rick and Morty. Morty, who is seen gazing at Jessica and daydreaming about her before Rick drags him along with him to another dimension for mega seeds, which are important and essential for Rick's research. But after their mission goes sideways and they have to create a makeshift portal back home, they're both teleported inside Morty's school, on top of a lunch table where Jessica happens to be sitting. And surprisingly, she knows his name and starts talking to Morty, appearing to be very interested or at least intrigued in their sci-fi shenanigans. But this conversation is quickly cut short by Rick, who tells Jessica that she can get Morty's number later, nearly confirming her flaunted interest in his grandson. And although this moment was kinda wasted, it wasn't really Morty's fault, which is a pattern we're going to see a lot of today. Like in the next episode on this list, Rick See Business. In this episode, Beth and Jerry Smith decide to go on a Titanic-themed romantic getaway. But before they leave, they warn Rick if anything is out of place when they get back, then they'll prohibit any of his future adventures with Morty. But obviously Rick doesn't care, so he decides to throw a party while they're gone. But like grandpa, like granddaughter, because Summer also invites some people over, but from school. And one of those people is Jessica, who shocks Morty with her presence after he was complaining about the idea of hosting a party. And if that wasn't enough to change Morty's mind, Rick antagonizes Jessica's jerk boyfriend, Brad, to fight an unwanted guest at the party to upset her, which was only to serve as a gateway for Morty to make his move. And he does, or at least he tries, by comforting her about her issues with Brad and then offering to show her something from Rick's garage. He ends up showing her a holographic planetary system on a small device, and he begins to pour out his feelings. But Jessica gets distracted by something coming from the closet, and yet again, they're interrupted by another third party, this time Squanchy doing his business. The next moment we see is in the episode Big Trouble in Little Sanchez. In this episode, Rick transfers his mind into a younger teenage version of himself named Tiny Rick to help Summer and Morty hunt a vampire roaming their school, which only lasts about a couple of minutes before they successfully do. And just as Rick is about to transfer his mind back, Summer's asked by her crush if she's willing to host a party with Tiny Rick while her parents are gone, and they both agree. You see, in this episode, Tiny Rick actually becomes pretty popular because of his carefree attitude and impactful charisma, which makes nearly everybody like him, including Jessica, who is more curious about the idea of Tiny Rick than anything, but she still goes out of her way to talk to Morty about it, which is honestly kind of surprising. But what's even more surprising is that she agreed to go with Morty to the school dance. And at the dance, they're seen holding hands and even slow dancing. But when Tiny Rick gets exposed for hunting down the vampire, which was actually one of the gym teachers, he gets expelled. And he immediately confronts Summer by ratting on him because, well, she was worried that he was going to stay in his younger body forever and rot. So after she storms out crying, everyone boos at her, and Jessica is also in disbelief. And that's it. That's all we see from this developing relationship in this episode. It's actually kind of funny that the creators show the progress of Morty's love life, but they immediately cut it down whenever they feel like it. Rest and relaxation is the next episode. After a very, very dangerous and stressful adventure, which Rick insanely underestimated, Rick and Morty decide to go on an alien spa to finally relax. And one of the spa's main methods of distressing is physical detoxification, fully separating the individual's healthy and toxic side. And for the rest of the episode, we see both sides of the coin. While the toxic versions of Rick and Morty are suffering, fighting for their lives, their healthy counterparts are thriving. Morty is becoming more popular due to his extremely positive attitude and change of behavior, which is helping him make more friends. And with this sudden wave of attention, Morty was bound to also get the attention of Jessica, who approaches him and is quickly asked out on a date by Morty. But before their relationship can continue, Rick interrupts them to tell Morty about the detoxification technique the spa used on them, and admits that he wouldn't have done it if he knew how it worked. But Morty brushes him off and goes on his date with Jessica, and he butchers it, and not in an awkward or embarrassing manner, but just kind of overbearing. He basically rants on the whole date, constantly talking and not allowing Jessica to get a word in, and this obviously doesn't interest Jessica, so she tells him the truth. or at least tries to, before Morty finishes her sentences for her, and she just leaves. Tough. It's just tough, man. But not as tough as what happens in Edge of Tomorrow. Rick, die, repeat. In this episode, Rick and Morty go to a planet to collect death crystals, which, as the name might suggest, tells the person touching them how they are going to perish in the present moment, randomly changing with every choice they make. And when Morty holds one and sees an ending with Jessica, he follows it, even if it means driving the car and crashing it, accidentally eliminating Rick in the process. But even after a holographic Rick warns him about the dangers, he ignores them and continues on this path, which includes writing nonsense, fighting bullies and armies, and even going to trial. But the crystal guides him through a solution and he's eventually freed. And once he steps out of the courthouse, Jessica walks up to him and asks if he wants to go swimming with her and some of her friends. But he says no, and tells her that they'll eventually get together in their 40s, and slowly walks away, which leaves Jessica in confusion as he continues on this desperate path, walking out of yet another opportunity. The penultimate episode on this list is the Vat of Acid episode, and this moment is a short one. In this episode, Rick and Morty are set to meet up with a few mobsters to trade some crystals, and Rick tells Morty that if anything goes wrong, then to jump into the same vat of fake acid with him. And judging by Morty's face, he's very unamused by this invention. But it should be foolproof, right? Well, it obviously isn't, because when things go wrong, they jump into the vat, and instead of the mobsters collecting the crystals and leaving, they decide to stay there to investigate the acid a little further. But when they decide to call a bone scientist to verify all the bones, Morty gets fed up and reveals himself, and Rick and Morty are forced to fight off the mobsters and leave the designated location. And on the car ride home, they go at it. Morty yells at Rick for his lazy invention, basically calling it chop, and Rick yells at Morty for ruining his plan. Once home, they argue some more, and Morty is able to convince Rick to make him a new invention, an idea of his, a checkpoint saver type of gadget, a remote that allows you to save a certain point in time and go back to it whenever you want to. And one of the first things Morty does is use it to flirt with Jessica, which he does by pretending to not know her, which actually works. And Jessica begins to display her newly found feelings for him. But this doesn't go anywhere again, because Morty decides to just move on once he realizes he can do so much more than just flirt with his crush. The last episode is Mort Dinner Rick Andre, where Rick and Morty are seen crashing down to Earth in a destroyed ship, and a defeated Morty decides to call Jessica and confess his feelings towards her in his last moments. And to his surprise, she admits her interest for him too, and they decide to hang out the same night, which gives Morty the determination to safely land the ship and hang out with Jessica. And he does, but he lands in the ocean, which summons this guy called Mr. Nimbus, who is Rick's nemesis. I don't know, man. Let's just move on. Throughout the episode, we see Morty and Jessica have a few flirty moments with each other, hinting at more until Morty finally did it. It took him 5 seasons, but at least he got the girl. I can't wait for their happy ending. Oh. Poor Morty. After they escape, Jessica shares her intense experiences with Morty and tells them they should just be friends. What an ending. And that's it. That is actually the last time we really see the two together in some type of romantic setting. Well guys, it looks like that'll be it for today. Comment down below any moments I might have missed. Please make sure to like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Later. Also, don't forget to watch my other videos as well.